Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to do some interesting analysis. We are going to figure out if there are any significant changes that have happened in terms of the NMAT score distribution. So what I've done is I've looked at the 2023 data that we had gathered, and please note that this is only IMS students that we are talking about, and it's always difficult to make estimations or inferences based on that. But I'm going to share whatever I have, and hopefully at the end of it, we'll have some understanding of what the cutoffs may look like. So let's get started. Now, the first thing to understand is when you look at NMAT scores, right? The test does not progressively become difficult or easy, and it is random in nature. A lot of people have this thing that they believe that the test becomes difficult as we progress in the entire window, but it doesn't work like that. The other change that has happened this year is the test window has reduced compared to what it was last year. So I'm going to share some numbers with you, and as I mentioned, these are only IMS students. Now you may be thinking, why is that number so low? Is because firstly, it's an optional thing that we do, right? So we ask students to submit their scorecards. A lot of people will choose not to submit their scorecards, and that's perfectly okay, and we respect that choice. So we don't force people to just submit their scorecards. Whoever has submitted the scorecard, we have picked that data. So if I look at the NMAT of last year, right, and we had 1614 respondents, we had floated a form, and through that we gathered scorecards, and all of these are verified scorecards. So out of this, 245 had taken the test before the CAT. Now this year again the test window has reduced. So prior to CAT there were only 18-19 days that were available for students to take NMAT compared to what it was last year, where the test had started on the 10th October. So that is why we had more people taking it prior to CAT compared to what data I have for 24 that I'm going to cover later. So if I look at mid-season, and I'm calling it mid-season, which is basically reviewing while we are in the center of it, let's say. So before CAT and after CAT, but then end season. So it's the entire data that I have. So what you observe is that, so I've given some numbers. So these were the mid-season averages that we have. So average 67, 83 and 78. Overall 229 was the average last year. So if I look at all the students, all again IMS students who submitted their scorecards, we found that 245 of them who had taken prior to CAT, if I take their average, the average in quant was 67, LS was 83, LR was 78. As we have seen time and again, LS continues to be the area where people score the highest, right? So if I had taken the average, these were the numbers, and the max figures, of course, you're going to see a lot of outliers there. For example, in LS there was an outlier at 109, in LR there was somebody at 101. Now if I look at the total respondents that we had at that point of time and calculate 65 percentile, 65th percentile of that in QS, that gives me the actual cutoff. So it gave me the cutoff of last year, which was 71 in quant. If I look at LS, that figure is on the lower side, and even I was surprised to see that kind of data. But that is 20 percentile and 20 percentile when it comes to LS and LR. So what I observed is that when it comes to IMS students, because again this is set of people who are very serious about the test, they're preparing for the test and all of that, you will see that 80% of our students have had more than 76 in the LS section, and 80% also had more than 71 in the LR section. Okay. Now if I look at the end season performance, so this is at the end of entire test window of NMAT last year, and now it is 1614 respondents that we are talking about. If you see, the end season average was 68, LS was 83 and LR was 77. Okay. Now if you look at how the cutoffs were, the cutoff was 71, 76 and 71, right? Again, the percentile, if you see, this is 60 percentile, which means 40% of the respondents had a score of more than 71 if I look at the data that I have. And similarly for the LS and LR, that was 25 percentile. Okay, so 75% still had more than 76 and 71. 234 was 60 percentile, which means that if I were to look at IMS students and calculate the 60th percentile figure, I should be roughly hitting the expected cutoff of NMAT this year or NMIMS this year, right? Now again, max score, don't look at that because you're going to have a lot of outliers there. So you have 108, 109, 109. In fact, in quant, there was only one student that we had who was able to cross 100. So the next highest was somewhere around 97, 98 last year. Now, if I look at this year, right, so let's understand how sort of this relates with what we have this year. So what I've done is now we have only 128 respondents so far. So of course we will also give a link in the description so that people can continue to submit their responses, upload your scorecard. We verify all the scorecards and then only we share the information. So I will suggest that you also upload your scorecard. We'll of course come up with an end season prediction kind of a thing once the entire test taking window is over. Now, if I apply the same figures, right, so I'm going to look at the percentile figures that we have for last year and apply the same on the data that we have gathered so far. What it tells me is that quant cutoff should be somewhere around 71, 72. Now, when I took the test on day one, I had this perception that quant has become very, very difficult. At least I found it to be pretty difficult compared to what it was last year. But then what we see is that it hasn't impacted the scores too much, right? So if you look at, okay, what it was, say, in the previous year, 71, 71, even this year, I think cutoff should be somewhere in the range of 71, 72. We don't see it changing too much because based on the data that we have so far. The max in quant is 96 that we have at this point of time. If you look at the next section, which is the language section, again continues to be the high scoring area. So you see a score of 107 there. This is the highest that we have as of now. And the average score is 83. And this is the important part of it. So you see that a lot of people continue to score on the higher side when it comes to the language section. But it is similar to what it was last year as well. So you see an 83, 83 mid-season as well as the end season. For quant, 67 and 68, in fact, this year, the pre-CAT or the mid-season data that we have is in fact slightly better than what it was last year, contrary to what I thought it would be. Coming to the third section, which is the LR section. So here also, again, it is in line with what it was, slightly lower. So 78, 77 last year, mid-season and end season. And this year it is 76 as of now. Now, if I look at the same percentile, which is the 25 percentile, 25th percentile calculation, it shows me that cutoff should be somewhere in the range of 70, 72. So that wouldn't be very, very different from what it was last year. So across the three sections, we find that it's not going to be significantly different compared to what it was. So initial perception that we had on day one that, okay, the test has become difficult. Of course, I think they've taken care of that in the scaling mechanism, because of which the scores haven't changed too much. Though objectively, I found the test to be difficult, and everybody who took it on day one, when they came back from the test, people had the same perception that it was very, very lengthy to do the quant section. But the scores speak otherwise. So the scores indicate that things haven't changed too much. Maybe the standardized nature of the test is such that, or they've changed the scaling mechanism a little bit, due to which you still see score that are somewhere lying here, right? So if I were to do some sort of a cutoff prediction at this point of time, like a mid-season prediction, quant cutoff 71, 72 is what I'm thinking. When it comes to the language section, 75 to 77, that should be the range of it. And when it comes to LR, it could be 70 to 72, right? Now, some of you may think that, okay, the sample size is too little to make inferences, right? I know that that is how it is. Because even at a 95 percentile confidence, you would need slightly more number of students or respondents to make a prediction which is, let's say, within the 5% accuracy, right? 5% margin of error. But then, see, we have seen that even this number, right, it wasn't very high compared to the number of takers that we have. So it is always possible to make some sort of an estimation with respect to population based on the sample data that you have. So overall, I think 235 still looks good. So it's not going to change way too much compared to what it was last year. So somehow things will fall in place for people who are in the range of maybe a 234, 235. Of course, we'll see how things go. There is an outlier at 297. We haven't seen more than 2 records of people going above 278. So I had a score of 278 on day one, and we haven't seen anybody in the last whatever days that we have had going above this except 2 cases. So we have 2 reported cases of 297, but these are outlier scores, right? So don't get worried about the score that you see here. I'll rather worry about these figures, which is 227 and 235. So my cutoff definitely won't be changing too much this year. That's how things are looking at this point of time. With more data, we'll have better comment on what the final thing may look like. And I would suggest that all of you we have a link in the description. So you can upload your scorecard there and we'll keep adding to this data. And at the end of the whole season, we'll come up with predictions as to what the actual cutoff may look like. And once NMIMS finally announces it, we'll see whether we got it right? So that's what the aim of this study is. So I hope this video has helped. And if you have any questions, if you want to know about your chances of getting a call with the scores that you have, do let us know in the comment section and we'll try and help you in whatever way possible. I wish you all the best and I hope this has helped you. Bye.